Thank you. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting, the Public Access Cable Committee, is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube after the meeting. This meeting is being held in person at the location provided in this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person rather than virtual attendance. Accordingly, Zoom meeting information is in the notice. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. So going to the agenda, typically we really should accept the agenda, and the problem is there's a typo. Don't have the agenda, it was sent out. The typo on it is the next meeting is actually September 11th. It says August the 14th.
Okay, so you need to make some kind of motion.
No, we don't just need to notice that's a correction on the agenda. So by roll call, as your President Paul, are you here?
Yes, I'm present.
Are you here, sir? Yes, sir. And Faith, you're here. And Brian here. Joe is with us as manager, and Eric has joined us. Hopefully, we'll see information.
Yeah, and so I'm going to put Eric as president and as a staff member, or what's your official title?
Technical producer,
production technician.
So, any public comments? Hearing none. Committee comments. Hearing none. Any communication? Through the agenda. Review and approve the meeting minutes. Pete, did you not get the minutes?
No, I didn't even need
All right.
He handed me the error.
Oh.
I found your error.
Oh, no, the error was on the agenda.
It's understood.
Oh,
This next meeting is like that.
oh, there you go.
That's probably not cutting the
I went through them and didn't spot that. So, you need any more time or you not? So, anybody have any comments on the minutes? If not, I will entertain the motion.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is, did we decide? I thought we were going to discuss, unless I'm wrong, about when we would be meeting on a regular basis. I know it was your desire to.
That's on.
So before we approve, right? But
okay.
Before we approve,
these are the minutes. So that's what we'll say. We can't change these unless it's an error.
Right. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure when we correct the agenda and the minutes, that we put the correct date down.
Oh, yeah.
That's all.
Oh, okay.
It was having a hard time coming out of my mouth, but that's
happen.
all I meant.
To me, all of it. So then does your motion need to include
September 11th? So so I make a motion to approve the minutes with a change of date for the next meeting to September 11th, 2023.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any further discussion?
These are the minutes. the last meeting.
Right.
And the mistake was it was said July 10th. This note should say today,
Oh, you're right.
so it should be on
I'm
the
sorry.
14th.
You really are awake tonight. This is gonna cause so much trouble.
You're right.
Someone is.
It is.
Oh,
You're
down in
absolutely,
Hull?
you're absolutely
Just
right.
Um, okay,
So
so
that's the August date. Should be
Yes.
on
Yes,
the
14.
meeting.
moving
Yeah.
on.
So as amended,
As, yeah.
second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Now, question. Do we need to make a motion to fix the error in tonight's agenda that announces the date of?
No.
Okay. That'll be in the minutes from this meeting.
Okay.
We did that right before. So that's good. So thank you. Somewhere useful. Manager's monthly report, that would be the new way at the end of the table.
That's your.
This is Joe McLaughlin speaking, giving the monthly report. This is in no priority order. This is just some things that have been going on. We just got 2 new affiliates on MMX, which was great. One is Ipswich and the other one is Mid-Peninsula Community Media in California.
What?
Yes, they picked up Storytime and
Nice, that's good.
I think, no, Ipswich picked up Storytime and Mid-Peninsula Community Media picked up both Storytime and Talking Baseball.
Nice.
In California.
Mid-Peninsula, California.
There's the Caribbean as well.
Wow.
US figure.
There are Red Sox fans everywhere.
This is true. Joe.
I've been doing the scheduled highlights for the Sentinel and Enterprise for the past 4 weeks. They do not charge us. They allow us to have a small section. So that's been ongoing. Started using a Google Calendar for the staff this month, the end of July. It's working out really well because it's online. And I have it set up so that there's a notification that goes to the videographer who has an assignment 2 days before the assignment, so I don't have to remind people, which is very good, but it has its good points and its bad points, but so far it's working out pretty well. The Lori Holden project was completed finally. That took quite a long time to do because of her different illnesses and different things that happened, but it was finally completed. We're hiring a new videographer, Rob Berberian, to start the first week of September, hopefully. I have to go in front of the personnel committee to request a higher entry pay rate. I want to, everyone basically has to start in at whatever grade step 1. Rob comes to us with a great amount of experience, and he has his own company, works mostly with drones, but he's also done some public access work over in FATV for the Chess Chat show, and so he's got a lot of experience, and so hopefully if we can push that through personnel, but the delay is personnel isn't meeting until the 3rd week in August, so I have to wait, and then it has to get approved by selectmen, so Rob's hanging in there right now, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, that's next week, isn't it? 3rd week is next week,
Yes,
so it won't be that
so it
long.
won't be that long, no. I worked on the ARPA numbers, which I gave to you in my handwritten notes. In addition to your packet, I worked with Eric on that today specifically, but we know we need to go through it several times before any action takes place.
We also need feedback as well from.
It's pretty nice looking stuff here.
What's the process to actually get the money available to us allowing us to spend it without having to put it through the town meeting.
Well, I spoke briefly to Heather, and apparently it's done by a specific account number. But the process is supposed to be the same as a regular purchasing process.
But it's not, our budget was set by town meeting. This is outside of our budget.
Right, but from what I understand, yeah,
I just want to make sure we're not doing something wrong by virtue of the way it's set up.
yeah, I have to talk to accounting about that.
Would you please?
I can't right now. Well, I can tomorrow. Karen comes in on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Oh, does she still?
Yeah, she retired, but now she's doing consultant work because there's no one in accounting.
Oh.
So I can check with her.
Please.
Sure.
I just don't want this to go pear-shaped.
I had to wait. It's another Karen thing. I had to go in and talk to her about it, but I had to wait on closing out FY23. Some interests weren't posted. I found some interest just posted for May that I had to put in, and for June, and partial payroll from June to July. So I finally closed out FY23 and I started the FY24 reports.
So is the front page of this the final?
The front page,
FY23.
it's the final FY23. So our ending balance was 987, 976.94. Then if you go through or bypass the town financial report, which is no fun to read, then it goes to FY24, Q1 July. The just as a note, the interest was very nice for May and June of last year, closing it out. May's interest was $4,716. June was $1,858, but there were 2 payments in May. I don't know why.
Okay, and this is just the interest on the savings. It's not reflecting yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We'll get to that, but it's not in these numbers. It should be actually $280 in the June month. Nothing that's significant. That's going to be good.
And as you can see, this is the calendar we're using now. This is a printout of it. Just so you can get an idea. I only put August calendar instead of July and August calendar. This.
And we can also invite any one of you to join the calendar if you'd like. So you can see it yourself and utilize it and add your own programs and progress to it or whatever stuff you're working on, if you like. If you like access to it.
Yeah, the pages before that, the program analysis, which I cannot find right now. I guess it's a page after.
Page after.
Yeah.
Page after.
Yeah, this program analysis, which it's just the first month, so we're only at 28 programs.
No, I know I have no contracts with anybody. Yeah, I just noticed you looking over, so I have no idea what I'm looking at, so I don't.
Oh, I think you
videotape. Sorry, we can't have multiple conversations.
Sorry.
Otherwise, we can't do it.
Just a question about the programs in July. The Crow's Pasture concert was videotaped and rebroadcast. That was here. How'd that go? How'd the audio and all that go?
Excellent.
Great.
Yeah. In fact, it was a 2-camera shot. One camera was a little bit yellow. I did a color match to get it corrected, and the correction was good. I mean, usually it's okay, not great, but it turned out good, and the audio was fine.
Great. Nice.
But there was still 2 different colors. Okay. The only other things are Dan's doing a fall health update with the Neshoba Boards of Health. And Eric and I are looking into some possible live programs for the studio.
This is with live calling.
Well, not necessarily live calling. We threw a lot of ideas out, and I don't know if we threw a lot of ideas on the table when we were trying to figure something out. We were not necessarily live call-ins, but maybe things that are maybe from Facebook or loaded that are live that, you know, maybe Paul might send in a question about something. And we were trying to think of something general, and I didn't realize that we had cemented anything when we finished the meeting. And so one of the things that we had discussed was for potentially doing something that had to do with the World Series. Now, I understand Pete has a dislike for doing live baseball related things. And one of the things that we had thrown out was, how about like a top 5 World Series ever that you could talk about? Because your show, I think, is about nostalgia and love of the game and not about the current events of the thing. And our intent was never to say this is what was going to happen. And it seemed like that I felt like you thought it was an attack on you, and that's not what it was at all. And so I didn't realize that the email was going to go out right away, and it wasn't something that we had decided to do anyway. It was something that we had thrown out there. And of course, I would probably obviously come to anybody before a show and said, hey, are you interested in doing anything like this? And
so we're premature.
Well, any announcement
was
certainly premature.
Okay.
But I think that we would like to do a lot. The TriCaster Mini is purpose built to be a live broadcast device.
Okay.
And so we really like to try to utilize that somehow in some way other than just doing live broadcast from the gym for basketball and football.
So when we have a more stable plan in place.
Yeah, we're just looking into it now.
And I think that was always our plan.
What about cooking? Don't you have that couple, or do they not do it anymore?
Oh, they don't. They live in Florida now.
Oh,
yeah.
Live cooking is a little tough because you have to wait for the food to be cooked. Usually, just or you have to have food ready ahead of time and stuff like that. And you have to have a set. I've actually checked in with the TC Paccio's kitchen because I do some volunteer work for some people that need food pantry stuff, so I get to talk to them. And I haven't really approached anybody official. I just asked them about the kitchen if it was functional, and they said it was. So I agreed that I thought about more beyond that. So
thank you. Joe, do you have anything more for us?
I don't at this time. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, Eric, let me tell you something about call-in shows. Jason's done a couple of them. The people that call in are less than polite.
yeah, I've worked in professional situations.
And they call in with idiotic questions.
I would never subject talent to that. Never, ever would I ever want you to do that.
And listen to talk radio.
And it's horrible.
It's on 15 seconds.
Lowest level.
Yeah.
So many
It's
people.
the lowest denominator. It's the lowest denominator of discussion. And that wasn't what we talked about. And so I think a lot of the nuance in the content, we talked about other shows in this context too. And trying just to come up with ideas. And what I was thinking is that, because I know you don't like to do the live kind of current baseball news shows. And that's why I thought, you know, a top 5 World Series memories, because there are a lot of people around here, I'm sure in Lunenburg, that we can contact and say, look, we're going to do a live show. Do you have a baseball memory that you want to call in with? And maybe we could put something like that on our Facebook channel and take a few pre-selected ones.
That's what you have to do.
That's it. And that's what
select people to call in.
Exactly. And that's
you
what
know they have intelligent questions.
And that would also give you, as the talent, time to have an answer for the question that's going to be posed, or a response to somebody's favorite.
So can I ask
Cult this moment?
take this out of this commission?
Sure.
You would really need to have a conversation.
I'm sure. I'm happy to do that at any time.
And then there needs to be a bigger picture of the whole concept. That we all understand the limitations and what we can. Is that okay? Sure.
I know
Thank
you're
you.
looking for ways to use the live function on the machine. So what about the story hour?
We could do that at the library. We could even do a coffee talk at the Eagle House. We could take the TriCaster out and hook it up very easily and do a half-an-hour live coffee talk at the Eagle House with, you know, senior subjects. And that could be the name of the show, Senior Subjects.
Would it be crooked to do political things?
I would stay away from political things.
Well,
And I seriously would. I would stay away from political things and religious things, like all the things that my grandmother told me not to talk about. And sports, I think, is one of the few realms that you can talk about that in a competitive nature and still be.
Sports is a religion in New England.
No, well, I know, yeah, yeah.
it is in New York too.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on? Have you nothing else? So thank
I
you,
have
Joe.
nothing, I have nothing else.
Appreciate you.
I guess just one question about the live.
You're gonna do that. The black magic.
Okay, is that me right now? I thought you made the whole list and I was just gonna answer questions that,
No, that's part of it.
okay. So we,
We
Sure.
actually moved on. That's relevant to what?
You asked if we could move on, and I said I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've moved on.
No, we haven't yet.
All I just would like to know is, do you have any time frame of when you would like to start hiring and trying to work in something like that, so that we can help you in the formulation of that?
Sure. I mean, we could start doing that as soon as you'd like. What I would say though is I think ideas are great and execution is great, but I think that you have to kind of work up and plan to have the infrastructure underneath you in order to be able to do that. And I think that you know, within a month or two, I think that it's going to be a little bit difficult to convince Joe to let me to unplug the TriCaster mini and take it to other places.
Right, so it's not gonna be the next month.
Yeah, so we need to try it out. We need to figure things out. We need to make sure everything works the way that we want it to before we execute.
So
And that would be 2 months.
Testing.
progress will begin.
Sure.
No.
Okay, I guess that could you put your notes out so I could just take a look at those two, the ones that you wrote down here and you start. Oh, you had them here. Okay, yeah, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, I have them here too.
Okay, so one of the things that
So this is proper funding item of the agenda.
this is a very rough draft, an incredibly rough draft of
Because we're recording it, trying to make sure
Well,
people understand
Hold-
where we are.
hold on, I think what we had talked about was presenting the option of using the black magic
yeah.
cameras.
There are a lot of stages.
Not so much ARPA, just it falls into the ARPA.
Well, one of the things that is very important to realize is, so in 1996, the television industry graduated to the 1080p standard, HD. In 2012, they graduated to 4K, which is the UHD standard, 2012. Now it's 2023 now. And so we want to make sure that we are operating at a standard. And also we're operating in a fashion that has a workflow that is a professional workflow, that somebody who works here, who gets experience here, can take that same experience and go to a different place and utilize a professional workflow to get stuff done and understand the way that production happens. And we don't really have that in place right now. We've got a lot of room for improvement. And one of the things that we don't have is we don't have consistent cameras. We have 2 Sony 4K cameras that are quite a few years old now. They're still fine, functional cameras. We also have 2 JVC 4K cameras, and then the rest of the cameras, the other 4 that we have are 1080p cameras. And the problem with that is that all the cameras use different sensors, different lenses, different color science, and it's very hard to match these up. And they also spit out different formats, some of these cameras, or can spit out for different formats. We've got them doing right, using the right formats, and they're not very intuitive. There are a lot of buttons on the side that the videographers that we have now, you know, quite frankly, don't really understand how to operate the cameras in a very efficient, quick way, the way that you should know how to do that. And some of that is what we're addressing, but some of that also has to do with ease of use. They're not incredibly easy to use. So one of the things that I would propose is that we standardize the cameras that we have there. And if we were to replace the cameras that we have now with the upgraded models, roughly about $4,000 a camera, there are other options. I prefer to look at options that have an ecosystem that we can build onto, that have components that work together. And one of the things that we looked at was a Blackmagic Design Studio Camera 4K Pro. They're 4K recording. They have so many amazing they're purposeful built studio cameras that they're feature rich. They have bright big displays with touch screen, very simple navigation, very simple to look at and understand what you need to do in order to improve the picture. It's very straightforward. It has SDI connections. They have HDMI connections. They also have an Ethernet connection, which with some additional pieces of hardware will allow you to control the camera remotely in terms of focus and zoom and an HD placement within a 4K frame, which is kind of nice. It's very similar to what PTZ does, but it's not PTZ. And all of these things work together. You can use the Ethernet to not only power the unit, but to provide headset communication, to provide audio into the switcher, and to provide the video signal and power to the device. So we can have one camera that you could plug the power into, and you could plug the SDI or the HDMI into, and the headset into. It has all those components. But if you wanted to use just the Ethernet cable with the addition of a little bit of extra hardware that you would need to do PTZ stuff, you can control the camera and do all that functionality with one cable. So you don't have everything, you know, all over the floor. It's very simple. It's all in one unit.
Eric?
Yes, ma'am. Surely.
Just to put this in perspective, which cameras are you talking about? The ones like for our Board of Selectmen, or the ones in our studio? Ones in our studio, okay.
So these are the I brought my laptop if you needed to see it, but
no, I just wanted to understand where you wanted to replace
sure
the cameras.
Now
I have another question.
Sure.
Too. If you replace the cameras, does that include a trade-in value, or would we use those cameras for the kits, for the videographers?
That's an excellent question. And I'm all about making sure that we're utilizing every bit of equipment that we have, every ounce of it, usability that we can get out of them, we're going to use. So what we would do at that point is that we would take the cameras that we have right now. Unfortunately, we can't sell any of the stuff. And we're actually sitting on a lot of older equipment that we don't really know what to do with. And there's not a lot of value in it, but there's a little bit of value, but we can't really do much with it. But what we would do is we would take those cameras right now that we're using, the camcorder style cameras, and we would convert those into cameras we would take the 4 of the best ones, and we would use them for our videographers. And then we would take the rest of the 4K and the HD cameras, and we would make them available along with information packets and instruction packets for people to be able to use, which is actually part of our charter that we need to do for the contract, that we're not really doing right now because we don't have that set up. And you know, these are dedicated studio cameras. You can, in fact, you can even you know, connect them directly to your telephone and use the Wi-Fi or the 5K on your phone to stream directly to the Castis machine. So we can actually take one to a basketball game and plug it into our phone and broadcast live to Castis, to this thing, right from the device without having to plug anything else in. We could also save directly to little tiny USB drives, plugging directly into the camera so that we could take them and utilize them in a large storage device. And the awesome thing is, sorry for all of the excitement, but it fits into a larger ecosystem that has a switcher that like I said, allows for some remote control of these cameras with the addition of some extra equipment. And
I don't understand that either.
So
where would, if you have the videographer right there taking the pictures?
So you know town hall?
Yeah.
You know the camera system that we have there? That's
Yeah.
called the PTZ, and that stands for pan, tilt, and zoom cameras. And so we control those with joysticks. There's not actually a camera person behind us. And that's also and that's why we don't want that in our studio. Because some of the charters that we have here, we couldn't fulfill some of these with PTZ cameras in the studio. We couldn't, conduct any training programs and the skills necessary to produce programming because we're not giving them a normal workflow with normal cameras, and I don't think we want to train people to use our PTZ cameras, and so there are a lot of little conflicts in that, and it's not community centric and education centric, in my opinion, to use PTZ cameras. Not to mention that each PTZ camera is about $9,000.
$9,700. So
yeah, they're very expensive. Very expensive.
Almost twice, like 40%.
And I think it's worth noting.
Yes.
Excuse me. I think it's worth noting that, and we talked about this today, that the TriCaster is not supported. The one we have is not supported anymore, and it's about 5 years old. So the controller and switcher for the Blackmagic cameras would basically do the same thing as the TriCaster.
It would actually do more. It would get rid of the audio controls that we have to have that are separate. And it's part of that same ecosystem where these pieces would fit naturally into that system. And from within that system, you can control the panning, you can control the zoom and the focus of the cameras. Now, there are also downsides to the system as well. I'm happy to get into those if you'd like. And there are also other brands that we could look at for this type of thing. I think that the PTZ cameras that we would look at are Sony. I love Sony cameras. I personally use Sony cameras. And so, there are other solutions other than these. The reason that we kind of selected these was because it all fits together into an ecosystem that you can build upon that adheres to a studio standard workflow that that is standard across the board. And also one other thing, every single one of these pieces of hardware comes with a full license for Adobe, for DaVinci Resolve Studio, which is the full editing package that DaVinci offers. And so there are 6 or 7, 8, 9, 10 different things on here that we would be purchasing. So that would mean we would get those licenses that we could put onto computers that we could train people on without having to pay anything additional for any updates ever. And so that also kicks another little box that's a permanent license. Absolutely. It has been so far, and it's been out for over 10 years, and they have indicated that they intend on keeping it that way. And it's a bonus addition. And it's fantastic software. It is slowly becoming the industry standard. I'm an Adobe certified instructor in both Premiere and After Effects, and I'm trying to learn DaVinci Resolve just because I don't like paying $60 a month for the license. And it's really very no, it's not. It is a Blackmagic design product. It is licensed by the people that make this software, and it's really fantastic. It's actually industry standard for color grading, and it is fantastic software. It's very intuitive. It's not industry based. It's end user base oriented. So it's much more approachable, as is the interface of the cameras. It's much more approachable than the very minute little screen with the buttons on it for the camcorder style things with all the switches. So everything is done from that big screen that's
Is the local studio using this environment?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
good to check it
So
out.
far it's looking pretty cool to me. I have 2 questions. Why are there no tripods?
We have 2 studio tripods right now.
Oh, so you can just move it.
And the studio cameras, they're interesting because I wish that I had I can take this out and show you pictures later on. And I can also happy to email you links to all of the pages with information about all this stuff. Because if you have different ideas, I mean, I'm certainly open to anything. I just want to make sure that we hit the standard of 4K production with a standardized workflow that meets, you know.
It's just with, you know, with the technology changing so frequently, it seems like just yesterday we were getting the TriCaster and everything. I know, what would you say, it was 5 years ago?
Well, it's also important to understand how big we are and how small we are. And you know, you don't want to overshoot for what we're doing. And so, I don't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
No, that was.
But the PTZ cameras, I think, are definitely, I mean, they are FX6s. I don't know if you know what a Sony FX6 is, but that's several steps off on their cinema line of cameras. And it's just super overkill for what we need. And these, you know, even if we went for a lower model, which I wouldn't recommend because these are the nice ones that can run everything on the one cable. You know, it's still, you know, it's still very, very, very affordable cameras, and you can expand upon that if you needed to. And
What's the support like from the company?
so that's one of the things that's super important to me. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I would tell you that the support from Blackmagic Design is probably a 5. And there's not much that comes in the box in terms of instruction. Fortunately, I would rate the community around it a 10, because for as little information as they supply you, there are people that have worked on this stuff and figured it out and have instructional videos on how to do
You're
that.
talking about like the user community.
Yes, ma'am. And the other thing is that I've used Blackmagic stuff before, and I almost bought a Blackmagic Design camera. I chose Sony over Blackmagic Design just because of the form factor is pretty big. It's like shooting with a shoebox. Their pocket cinema camera isn't very pocket. But these are the studio cameras. But you know, they do have a great reputation for putting out really good stuff, and all their stuff is warranted. It has great warranties, and the support is okay if you're willing to wade through it. And you know, but again, there are certainly other options available if you're interested in that. So
Where are they manufactured?
you sorry?
Where are they manufactured?
They're manufactured in the United States. I believe that they're manufactured in Maryland. I'm not 100% sure.
So it's not manufactured somewhere like those issues.
Yeah, like international war.
Oh. I collect Sylvia lenses, by the way.
Question on the post-production workflow support. Are you confident that you have the right computer support already in place for any kind of post-work that has to be done with stuff that's up to 4K resolution level?
Well, yeah, I'm not worried about that, especially with part of my workflow is with Adobe is creating proxies for everything. That's what I always teach people, to create proxies for files. Adobe's, I mean, Adobe, DaVinci Resolve is actually really good and does really well with 4K files, even on lesser computers. But if that becomes an option, then I would go back to proxies, which are just lower resolution files to high 4K files. You edit on the 720p files, and then the software automatically puts those edits onto the 4K software when you render it, so it makes it easier. Yeah, it's sometimes chugging through 4K footage on a slow computer is a nightmare. I totally understand.
Is this happy with the casters and vice versa?
Well, Castus is happy with streaming. So it's happy to receive a streaming key and accept streaming information. And so thankfully that's the standard that we have to hit at this point. So it's not something we have to hook up. It's only inputting you know, RMTP information and stream information the same way that we do into any computer.
The file size on the testers is going to be ridiculous compared with what we have at the moment. or not?
No, because, well, you can choose to broadcast in a different resolution than you're saving to disk.
No, oh, yes, sorry.
And so, you know, you can, if you decided you wanted to, and I mean, I know that Castus downscales everything to 1080 anyway.
No,
So,
keep them down. We have standard definition to send that.
oh, 480. Really? So
Yeah.
I thought we broadcast in 1080. We were able to broadcast in 1080.
Not
Yeah.
yet.
I have to admit,
We have to put an adapter.
so we're seriously the 1996 standard. We're not even at the 1996
No, no,
standard. It's the 1972 standard.
1984. Tables.
Oh,
That's where it's just the we need to ensure end to end, because if bringing something like this in causes us to have to yet again upgrade the casters or change to a different cable system.
well, I'm sorry. I don't want to disappoint you, but you can do it for a second.
Well,
Which,
The Castus machine. I think it's really old. It's running Linux right now, which is not
they all
ideal.
run Linux.
it's
It's a
not,
Linux-based machine.
it's not really old, and it's been upgraded.
We have to keep that for the life of.
Because it's running Firefox 3.1. So that's
No, we stopped
It's
running,
not.
we stopped that.
Oh, you're doing the laptop
Laptop.
now. Okay.
Right,
Okay. Okay. I thought we were still using the other machine.
Oh.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was my mistake. That was my mistake.
No, I just want to make sure when decisions aren't made without an end to end. End to end means some person sitting at home with a minimum basic cable service.
Sure.
Because that's our charter.
Well, in order to broadcast, it has to be
We have,
reduced.
to
Yeah, when we put it up to Castus, it's broadcast at whatever resolution that they broadcast at, regardless of what we give. So if we give it a 4K and it's only broadcast at 120p, it'll downscale.
I
it all
don't want
to
the file size to be 8 times what we've got.
No, they're not. Once you, yeah, so that's one of the other cool things about newer technologies. That we have encoding like H2 for codecs like H.265, which actually does a lot better with 4K. We're getting used to dealing with that file size now. And with this new codec, it makes it a little bit more manageable for computers. And so that kind of touches a little bit what you were talking about, how to deal with them on computers. We could use H.265, and that would make it a little bit easier to use on.
I mean, I understand you're not going to do a whole lot of post when you're using these live in the studio anyway.
That's true. That's
That's
but
the icing on the cake.
but
We will record what we're doing live as well.
yeah, we're gonna be doing that. We're also gonna be hopefully producing 4K content that we're gonna put on YouTube as well as on. So it'd be nice to be able to have 4K for that.
I suggest a couple of things.
Please.
Do the best we can to find the studio preferably within driving distance that has the environment we're talking about. We can do that through mass access.
I'll send out a note.
Because
So we're looking for a media center using Blackmagic
For studio cameras, yeah.
studio cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice about them is location cameras.
It's not hard to find, even with stuff like we've got right now, like with the TriCaster, there are a lot of Blackmagic devices that people use to like to load graphics into the downstream keys for the TriCaster. So there are a lot of studios use Blackmagic stuff.
if we can find somebody, talk
Sure.
to the people who are using it, to get their grumbles and their complaints out of the way, so that we have a much better understanding.
Great.
We'll have another field trip.
Yes, we've got those. And if you could share, links. Or
I will
whatever,
send emails.
so we could,
Yeah, to all of us.
some of this.
Yeah, I think it's
Oh, yeah.
Was it Witten Chester that we went to? They had everything state of the art, or was it,
Not Drake it.
Well,
Was
the
it
challenge-
Drake it?
Wakefield?
Tricky.
Was it Wakefield?
Drake it was good. What?
Wakefield, was it? It was in the school, it was in the high school.
Ready.
Yeah.
and Wakefield.
Oh, Reading. Okay.
Yeah, they're all a blur now. I think we're ready to go on tour again.
Yeah.
Acton had a nice studio set up.
They did.
So for one person could do a whole show with multiple cameras. And,
Well, they can still do that with ours.
oh, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I just finished building a studio for a client to do just that. And I have one of the same kind of studios in my house. Where, and I did a morning show, Lunenburg, Good Morning Lunenburg, for a month, where the weekdays, and it was about a 15-minute show every morning, and you know, with lower thirds and intros and videos and everything else like that. Now it's not using the same kind of equipment that we're using in the studio, it's using my home equipment, but you know, it certainly can be done anywhere.
Yeah,
and we were hoping to actually include video podcasts and different kind of presentations in our studio, which is kind of what we're trying to do to increase, you know, the usability.
Speaking of podcasts, you know, trying to get the younger people involved in the town involved. A thought came to me that, you know, maybe we could invite some of the younger people who have an interest in fashion podcasts or makeup podcasts or hair podcasts.
that would be tough.
Well, I don't want to be discriminatory, but
Yeah, that's,
without
you know,
them
it's
having, I know they usually get paid by advertising, so it would have to be, you know, not.
One of the things that I was going to try to do in the coming months was to approach somebody at the school department about a creators club after school that we could host, you know, and that's one of the ways that we could. Remember, I was talking about the infrastructure to get people to come in, and so like doing stuff with the sports teams and highlighting individual players so they will watch it. Those are all little things that we can do to plant seeds of interest, and then when it's time, you know, we can start advertising. Hey, come down and do this, or see what this is, and Paul, and that's another thing also that Peter's got it covered. But Paul, you gave her some stuff of your drone work and said you put it on your YouTube channel. How about every month we have something from somebody here or some interest in a project from one of you guys? Like I was talking about the
Faith has a project started.
Yeah, which is Faith. I'm sorry, YouTube. But you know, you do some great stuff. I'd love to see some of your travel stuff. You know, and just even if you were just talking about some of your pictures. I'd sit through 10 minutes of that if we, you know, made it interesting, right? And right? And I would know. Well, I mean, usually YouTube videos are 8 to 10, 12 minutes.
No, but that's short. But anyways,
you know, I know you have an interest in old cameras like I do. I mean, you know, there's something that we could all do that would only. And we had a contest, a last video meeting, and I could actually show you. I have them on my computer. I asked everybody to do a 1-minute video that just told a story. It didn't have to be deep. It didn't have to be complicated. And the things that we got were fantastic. Joe made a fantastic one. Matt made a great one. I made a nice one. There was a couple, and they look great. So it's easy to tell the stories. I have them if you really want to.
No, I mean, can you put them on broadcast?
We did.
Oh, you did?
Well, we put mine on. We didn't put
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought you told us we couldn't do our own.
well, that's a contest. This was your staff, like, let's have some fun.
Yeah, this was just an internal thing that
Like a training.
and we could, well, see, the thing is, we could take a whole bunch of those kind of things and put them together to do a 15-minute, you know, behind the scenes in October video or whatever.
Do we have any relationship with Market Tech? Yes. Because those are the kids that are teaching makeup in cosmetology and all that stuff. So I think
I get excited too about working with young people and trying to get them off their phones this way,
Yes.
that way. But maybe this isn't going to be tabled for.
That's a good
When I
idea.
first started, I made a real effort on Instagram and Facebook to find local creators because my idea was to get them involved in kind of almost not unionize, but to band together.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of luck with that. Not a lot of people were interested. And some of them are adults, and they post some content that is, you know, bar reviews and things like that. There are quite a few people around here, but I didn't really get many of them to respond.
Just like little seeds, like you say, just little here, little there.
And the more and more we do that, and the more, and see, one of the things on our charter is to provide publicity, fundraising, outreach, and referral, and other support services to access users. But we don't do any of that right. And so we're trying to get some clarification from the lawyer right now on some of the wording of this contract to make sure that we can follow the rules and do everything right. But we want to also involve the communities. If you want to have sponsors for things.
Well, that's
not
the sponsor.
well, not sponsors for programs, but sponsors for like a $25 gift certificate for Il Forno for giving a $10 donation to the Boys Club or something like that, or anything, or a contest where we give away a $25 gift certificate to Joe's Bait and Tackle, and we don't have to worry about. We're not advertising for them, but we're accepting that as something not for our profit, but for a compensatory reward for a nonprofit organization.
Right. We have talked about this before, and we have. I know. Part of the problem was trying to figure out how to promote something without advertising it. The difference being not product oriented. But
over a month ago, I approached the lawyer and had a meeting with the town lawyer to go over this in depth and detail. I posed all these specs. I went through this document in detail and pulled out every single thing that could get us in trouble. He's got copies of all of my notes and everything else, and we're still waiting to hear back from him. I have not heard back from him yet, but I'm almost to the point where I would. I can read this and I believe that I'm interpreting this correctly, and so. I think that we can act in a very conservative way without going overboard, and in a way that kind of touches more with the community over a longer period of time to seed the popularity of our station and community participation in the station.
Can I bring this back to this meeting?
Yes.
Sorry. So that exciting and everything else. Try to let it go for a while. We're moving to. I suspect come up with a better way that's not this committee with its charter, turning these minds loose. So it wouldn't be a Pacc meeting, it would be a creators meeting, where we do something like that. Just turn it loose. Unfortunately, we would not be allowed to bring a 6-pack with us or something to loosen the tongues. But I'm actually trying to stick to the agenda. Thank you.
But we will check with other media centers.
Find another one and share the links. Okay. Thank you.
Overall, looking like a good start.
Yeah.
Thank
Really
you.
good start.
And thank you.
So no,
Well, we've got one other thing that's going to take 1.5 minutes. Then we adjourn, but you're also free to. Yeah.
I didn't want to stay up and talk about private things.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
We also try and finish at 7 o'clock. And we've got 3 minutes. I think we can see. Oh,
Nice.
so the enterprise fund thing, I tried to find out what we are going to get for reporting. And with a total useless piece of paper. So what I was told is we are going to get this quarterly. This is for the $720,000 that are being invested in treasuries.
So
as of this moment, as of this report, none of it was invested. So this isn't really a good example of what's going to happen. The other thing I'm less than thrilled with is it's quarterly, like how they managed to have it on the quarters that we own the bonds for, because they're 6-month ones, buying them initially on a 2-month ladder. So, that's where we're at, because it's on the agenda. Hopefully, within the next couple of months, we will get a more useful one that tells us exactly what's going on.
So for the minutes, I think you said just getting started, something like that.
Something like that. We have an
Do you-
example report
Baseline, yeah.
from farm.
Is it fair to call the 720K our baseline?
I call it the enterprise fund.
Oh, here's this section of the, you would need to look back on,
Oh, that's
that's just stuff that I reported.
Oh. So does anybody have anything else they need to bring up? With this August meeting?
Are we,
August,
I don't know if are we, the second Monday now for good?
The list is on the back of the minutes, yes.
But-
From,
I didn't print out the minutes,
Oh.
so,
No, I have seen my.
The first one.
oh, we're going back to the first Monday, okay.
Because of later.
with the list on the back, you need to dump
Okay.
into your calendar. So the next meeting, I believe, is the 11th of September. So now there's 9/11.
Yeah. At 6 o'clock p.m.
These are the dates.
Yeah,
So
I
the-
have them here. These 16,
Motion to adjourn.
No, you can't. ask for that. We have to-
Would you entertain-
Stop it.
Did you
Take control of the meeting. Oh, no, I agree. Okay, I will entertain the motion.
Oh, that's the yell back.
Second,
Second,
no discussion, all those in favor, let's get the hell out of here. Would you mind killing the recording?
Bye, Brian.